I think we're live and up and running. Hi, everybody. It's the Mike and Bob show. I'm Bob Weathers, and this is my dear friend, Michael Morar. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. It's nice to have you back. Michael and I meet every other Wednesday night. And we missed a couple weeks ago, and I'm glad to be back here. Our topic for tonight is part of the ongoing series at Your Vitality Project on dealing with addictions of every possible kind. And I sent you the post that we're going to be kind of hovering around today, and we'll go where we go with it. The title is How to Break Old Patterns. Easier said than done. But I wanted just to kind of talk into that with you today to see what your reflections are on any of this and see where we go.
Yeah, Bob, thanks. Yeah, actually, the first thing that occurred to me, even when I was reading the posting for today, I really liked the last paragraph when you're talking about, can you think of a time that you might have been, and I liked your description of it, that you might be caught in the talons of addiction, or I'm not reading it exactly now, but I liked your use of the word talons there, which is, when might you find yourself in the midst of kind of getting taken away with it, but then are able to step in and do something different. So I really liked the question you proposed at the end, which is inviting people to think of a time that they did that. Do I have that right in my recollection of that?
Yeah, you do. You have absolutely right. Yeah. I think part of my thought there in writing it was that it feels so damn good when we can find some other approach. In fact, the next post I wrote after that has to do with Bandura's work on self-efficacy as a basis for self-esteem, as it can feel there's such a reward. There at least has been for me when I'm able to face a craving or face a challenge that might lead to some kind of addictive behavior, whether it's with substance or an attitude that I don't want, or some other behavior. It feels so good when I can take the road less traveled.
and perhaps had it been traveled more than you had realized until you started thinking of a time that you had done that, right? And that we might be doing some of these corrective behaviors or these kind of self-efficacy behaviors more than we realize when kind of it gets framed in light of, when the problem is getting all the spotlight, then sometimes it's easy to forget the many times that we are resisting it or doing something different than the pattern might give credit to.
Yeah, I like your framing it or emphasizing this. It's so much a part of my own kind of ongoing process in my own life. I don't feel like that I emphasize that enough in this post, and I appreciate you drawing this out. I certainly feel it in the work that I do clinically, and I bet you do too. There's this idea of kind of a built-in negativity bias in our brains, and when that turns on ourselves, it can be quite unkind. It can be quite selective in terms of what it remembers. And I really like working with clients where I can help them see what they're doing, and I like it especially when that client is me.
Well, and I think sometimes that's what really helps to work with, somebody around this, is that it's harder for me to see it in myself than it is going to be for me. I mean, I think that it's easier for me to see it in someone else and help them to see it than it is for me to do it on my own. I mean, those are two different things entirely. And I would need someone to help me with that as well. Yeah. And so I think I appreciate what you're saying too, is, you know, can we be as kind to ourselves as we can to others around things like this? And it's hard, you know, and I think that having someone else show, you know, give value to that kind of kindness that we want to have for ourselves helps us to have that for ourselves.
I really appreciate you going this direction with it, or us going this direction. It's something that I don't know how much talking I've ever done about this, and I don't know that we've ever spoken of it, but it would feel good to just lay it on the table, and I'll own it for myself. And Michael, if it resonates for you, I'd love for you to join me. Is I don't know if psychotherapy clients, in your case, recovery coaching clients, in my case, I don't know if clients appreciate, and those clients have been you and me too, so I'm including all of us in this. I don't know if they appreciate, I'm going to put it in the third person right now. I don't know if they, no, I'm going to put it in the second person. I don't know if you appreciate, clients, which is all of us. I don't know if you appreciate that therapists like Michael and coaches like Bob not only are human beings, but that we have, there's an incredible boon that we get from doing the work we do if we're committed to integrity, is that there's always an opportunity. I feel this every week, Michael, and I'll just speak to you now. I feel this every week, is that in working with the clients that I work with around all kinds of issues, typically radiating out from addiction, which I believe is all of us, is that who gets to spend 8-10 hours a day refining and tuning the way we do not only our work with the clients, but I would want every client to know that that work is utterly reciprocal, and that I'm so grateful for that. I've been at this for 40 years, and I guess I had to do it for 40 years to make any progress, but I'm so grateful on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And I can think of, if I sat here for 5 minutes, I could think of several clients that the issues that they're working on, for me to show up with integrity, is putting me to the task of making sure that Carl Jung said that the surgeon must have clean hands, and you can take that too far. But I think what he was talking about is that if I like the way that Charlie Parker, the jazz saxophonist, put it, is if you don't live it, your horn won't play it. You know? And I feel that in our work, if you and I aren't living it, and by that I'm not trying to pretend to be something I'm not. It's like I've just really committed on a good day, and I have a lot of good days. I'm really committed to growth, and we're in a profession that allows us to be down in the smithy of growth full on. It's really such a gratitude that I have for this work, and I would want every client, which is all of us, I would want every client to know that, is that I'd even want to add a postscript to that. If you're working with a therapist that disagrees with what I just said, then leave as quickly as possible. I probably get myself in hot water for saying that, but I really feel that. I feel that with my own therapist over the years. Any supervisor that I've worked with that was worth his or her salt, I felt like there's very much this sense of mutuality, that we're rolling up our sleeves, we're working on doing what we can to improve our lot. And I really appreciate the co-construction that goes on in the best of therapy, the best of supervision, the best of friendships. We can just go down the line.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, just in terms of the reciprocal nature of therapy, and that it's not just going one direction. It's going, it's more circular. Some therapists may take a different position. And I'm sure that may work for them somehow. I'm not interested, and I'm sure that, like, lots of the ways that I am as a therapist is ways that I would like a therapist to be with me too. I guess maybe that's implicit in that. I don't know. I mean, for me it is. But I certainly learn every day from the people I work with, just whether it be vicariously or from the knowledge that they bring that I don't have, and I never presume to know. Well, I'm sure I have, but I would say I'd prefer, and for the most part, I don't presume, but I'm sure I can, get out of step with that, to know any more about life and how I'm supposed to be living it than they do, because they are also operating within different contexts. And so it's not a matter of who knows more, because I don't, it's not a matter of like, I know how to do this any better. I'm learning all this as I go too. I'd say our training is how can we talk about, I think that what I would bring to the table as a therapist is how can we talk about this in a way that is helpful for the direction you're trying to go in your life.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes, I think I've told you this story before, and if I haven't told you, I've told others, that I remember my first counseling class, and it was the fall of 1977. I remember it. I remember coming home from that class, and I spoke to my wife's mother, and I told her, I said, when I started studying psychology, I had intentions to become a psychologist. I was a junior in college, so I had an awareness of what that was going to entail. And I took my first class, my first lecture. I came home from my first lecture, and my idea of becoming a psychologist was that I would tell people what to do. I'd get really good at telling people what to do. And I literally came home from that first class that first afternoon, and I told my wife's mother, Verna, I realized I know nothing about listening. and if I've told you this story, you'll remember it. Verna's response is unforgettable. She said, "That's right, Bob. You don't listen to me ever." And I remember even in that moment, as a very young man, being really pissed by that response. It's just like, and I think her response was probably not far off from what I had assumed. Her view of listening was do what she says, and I didn't do that, so I didn't listen. That wasn't exactly what was revealed to me that day, but look what I was looking to do. I was looking to become a psychologist that tells people what to do. So presumably, if they didn't do what I said, I guess I would say to them what she said to me, which is, you don't listen to me. So that was the beginning of a massive shift that took, well, it continues on, is that it's almost like learning. I wonder if it's a little bit like this. It's almost like learning what not to do. It's an odd way to put it.
No, I think learning on what doing this is not anything like what I thought it would be. I mean, I guess there's some parts of it are, but in terms of like how we do that, and it's nothing like what I imagined. And actually in a really enlightening way, like in a really good way. I think I'm really thankful that it's not that.
Me too. Here's a funny oxymoron that comes to mind, Michael, as I listen to you. See if I can find it. It went through and then it slipped on by. I'm going to state this. I'm going to have to qualify it. I feel like I'm really good at this. I feel like I'm really good at this thing that's not a thing. And I think that's true. And I also feel like the qualification is I want to hold that I'm really good really lightly, because there's a sense that there's something that's been cultivated over the decades now, that something really powerful can happen. And I'm so grateful to be in the presence of it. Sometimes I'm in wonder too. And it does require all the studying that you're doing, all the studying that I've done, all the training, and also everything beyond that. There's something that comes through, and it happens again and again. And I'm just kind of in awe of it. And so it's an odd thing, the Chinese have this term wu wei, action without action, or doing without doing. That's close to it. It's like wu wei. It's like doing something. I'm really good at not doing something.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of this morning in some way, which is like sometimes I'll be like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. And then it's like, it's hard because it's hard. All that I've learned and all the time I spent training is that it's hard to quantify it in the same way that you would be like to, write code for soft, like it's not as tangible. And so it's real easy to forget all that goes, all that I've learned to be able to not do it, you know what I mean? Like kind of back to your metaphor.
I'm remembering something I haven't thought about for years. I don't think I've ever told you this story. It was 20 or 25 years ago is when I was teaching at Pepperdine, and I was in my office late one night seeing a client. He was a student in a doctoral program elsewhere in Los Angeles. He was studying elsewhere, and I was working with him. And I'll never forget this. This is 25 years ago, and if it was true then, it was partially true then. It's so true now. I think I would hope that I would respond the same way I did. I'm pretty sure I would. He was revealing something really vulnerable. The content is well lost on me, so confidentiality is spared.
Right.
But he was down in there, and we were there together. And I remember it was at night. There was just a single lamp in my office, and we were sitting in chairs opposite each other, kind of leaning intently. And at some point he pulled back and he looked at me and he said, "Dr. Weathers, do you know what the fuck you're doing?" That's exactly what he said. And I remember leaning towards him. It was just one of those momentary things. I leaned towards him and I went, "Yes, I do." And it was the right answer. And because that was his question. It wasn't questioning my competence at some superficial level. It's like, to be where we are, can I trust you? Can I trust you to be here with me? And I believed that he could. And if that was true 25 years ago, well, I hope it's even truer now. Never have forgotten that. I used to tell that to students. It's one of those moments where if you flinch, if you bat an eye, if you don't tell the truth, you just have to tell the truth. It could have been, no, no, I don't, just don't lie. Whatever it is, tell the truth. And it makes that comes to mind. Because that wasn't about books on a bookshelf. That was about, we're down in a place and I need to know that you're familiar with this valley.
Yeah. But you know what it makes me think of too, is that he was asking one kind of question, which may or may not have been what he really wanted to hear. Like, in other words, I think he wanted to know, like, can you hold this space? Like, do you know, like,
that's exactly right.
Because I think there's some perception of what that is to know what the fuck you're doing, is one thing, which is, can you hold this space for me? And can we, like, can I trust you? And lots of other things but he's in his cognitively, he might've been like, hey, are you are you trained? But people may not know exactly how to ask the other, I doubt I would, so I think, and I don't know that. I'm just guessing that his question may not even been so much. I mean, I guess competence was for sure in there, but in a different kind of way than one might think right off the bat.
It helps me respect the risk that other souls take with you and me, Michael. I actually feel tears rise up when I think of this. They entrust their souls to us, and they barely know us. They've spent a few hours with us, if that.
Yeah.
And
I think it's usually a question I ask pretty early, like when I first meet with someone, which is like, just appreciating that and wanting that, like, what was it like even, before we met up, in terms of like coming to, talk with a complete stranger, and I'm guessing that like that wasn't easy, and just wanting to appreciate the risk that they're taking.
That's good. Yeah.
Which also leads me to thinking like the thing about, so who am I? They're taking this risk, and I'm certainly not going there to tell them how to live their life, and tell them what is important to, what they should be doing. Honestly, I think the reason most people come to meet with a therapist is because all the shoulds that they should be doing in the first place. So I'm surely not going to go in a direction that, sometimes I think that people need therapists because of psychology in terms of normative, like what there's, because all that, what you should be doing in one way or the other is coming from norms and standards, which comes from psychology.
Yeah. I felt like one of the most helpful illuminations of this was it might have been at the tail end or right after I finished graduate school, but I came across the research and the writings of Ernst Beyer at the University of Utah. And he was a psychotherapy process researcher, and I just loved his languaging of it. And this distinction really made sense to me, and it fits with what you just said. He said that therapy is not friendship, which isn't to say that you're not warm and feel loving feelings. I do towards clients. In fact, I feel like it's really incumbent on the therapist to develop that if it's not there at the beginning. That's another conversation. But he said how it differs from friendship, and it's really implied in what you're saying, is that friends tell us what to do, and we're part of a culture that does shit, fixes things, assumes they're broken to be fixed to begin with, and then fixes them or tries to, and so on. And Ernst Beyer said is that we don't respond socially as therapists. A therapeutic interaction, by definition, he says, is an asocial response. And there's a million different ways that can go. That was really when I came home that day from that first class. What I discovered is everything that I thought about therapy, which is I'm going to fix people. I just took one lecture and the scales fell from my eyes. I realized, oh man, I am so over my head with this. It's not going to be anything. And then
I had that same class. I know which one you're talking. I mean, there was a particular day.
Yeah.
And I find some irony in the fact, though, that especially in psychology, it seems like that it's still, I'm glad that they said that, but I see it being acted out.
Yeah.
Contrary to that.
Me too. Me too, Michael. Me too. Yeah. That's one of the gratitudes I have for our coming together, because I think you and I share enough of a critical perspective on this to realize that it's not only in us, but it's out there. And in fact, it becomes the norm. There's the verbiage about, and then there's the reality of this. And how did Shakespeare say it? It's honored more in the breach than the observance. There's a breach of this more than it's observed, something like that. And so what we're talking about is radical presence. And it's not to say that a loving relationship of any kind can't be therapeutic, but what Beyer was saying is that a therapeutic relationship, in whatever form it takes, it reserves the right to not respond like other people do. And so I like what Freud said. Freud said that he called the psychotherapy office the cell, like a prison cell, but he didn't have that connotation. Just he said he felt like the psychotherapy session was the cell of revolution. That's some radical shit he was thinking. He felt like that therapy, if it's doing what we're talking about, then it's by definition countercultural. And that's what he meant. It's radical, it's revolutionary. And that makes this work really exciting.
Yeah. Well, because I think it gives an opportunity to have the kind of conversations, and for me to ask someone the kind of questions that I would never ask people otherwise,
exactly.
Like I can remember a question I asked someone today, and it's like, just kind of taken, like, because we don't think about them. We don't ask ourselves those questions. They're just completely different questions that are some hope to, and actually it's out of genuine curiosity that also might help someone gain a different perspective than they had otherwise.
Yeah. I'm grateful to be paid for some portion of the work that I do. I'm really grateful for that. I really am grateful for that. I thank clients for helping to support me. And I feel like my responsibility to them is to cultivate what you just talked about as consciously or as intentionally as I possibly can. And I'm deeply committed to that, is a willingness to learn skills, to shed cultural attachments, personal attachments, work through all the things that block that. And it's a lifelong thing. It'll never finish. And I feel like I owe it to clients to be willing to risk saying the thing that is what no one else says. And to do that ideally out of compassion. I like what the Tibetan Buddhists call it. They call it ruthless compassion. I love that combination of ruthlessness and compassion. Is that it's like a samurai soldier in a sense, is that you're trying to exercise with utmost skill a surgical maneuver. And I bless clients for trusting that. And I want to be worth that. I want to be worthy of that trust by committing myself to that. It means that we have to be willing to be countercultural, even within our own profession, maybe especially within our own profession. And this will piss off some people and confuse other people, but I feel like it's the truth. I feel like it's the truth.
Yeah.
Jung said, "Thank God I'm not a Jungian. Thank God I'm Jung and not a Jungian." And it's a way of just keeping it real. It's like, was I born to be a psychologist? Was I born to be a this or that?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't. Wow. I hate stopping.
One part of, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Finish your thought. I have to stop.
No, I said what made me think of, I think I've referenced this before in one of our conversations here, which is that's one part of you, right? In terms of, I'm just thinking of that quote that I forgot who it was. I think it was your therapist that said something along the lines of he had never seen you walking, and so
it was my therapist, Don. Yeah. I hope what comes through in our conversations, it's hard to imagine it doesn't, but I hope it lands favorably, that anybody who watches this now or later, that it might provide some hope for what's possible in relationship to a therapist or a counselor or a coach. I love where we go, and it won't be for everybody, but for those that maybe have either given up hope or maybe need a little bit of encouragement, I hope that they can find it in this. There's something about where we go that feels very true to me, to the whole therapeutic endeavor, and I value it highly. And I hope that some part of this might land favorably with somebody who's listening tonight.
Yeah, I like you closing it out with hope, because I was also thinking when I read your the posting for today, which is that most people, and you mentioned skills, and that's why I especially liked your closing paragraph, because it really spoke to the skills that most people have already, that what people have to do this and to recover or to go through change is that they're not going to have to look as far as they might initially think, like it's there.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, around hope, I think that might help move people or help with some greater levels of hope.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Yeah, that feels like a good place to punctuate tonight's conversation. We'll pick up again soon. I'm looking forward to that. Michael, thank you for your time, for your energy tonight. Much love to you. Many blessings. Take care, brother.
You too, Bob. Yeah, it's good seeing you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.